Chewy happens to be my boyfriend, so
Yep.
that one was a special interest for me.
Right. Yep, she was
Yep.
her boyfriend. Yeah.
Yep.
This is the Apparently Autistic podcast
Where we unmask the spectrum
with real voices.
and real experiences.
We're your hosts, Keith Holloway,
And Bridget Holloway.
and I am Apparently Autistic. Before we get started, just a quick reminder. We're not experts in anything except our own personal experiences and perspectives.
Be sure to check out the important disclaimers and disclosures in the show notes.
Now let's dive in. Hello, welcome to episode 5.
Episode 5.
The Apparently Autistic podcast. I'm Keith Holloway.
And I'm Bridget.
And this episode, we're going to be talking about special interests.
Special interests.
But before we do anything else, we'll talk about one of my special interests, which is Bridget. We're recording this on Mother's Day. I'm going to wish her a happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there that,
They'll be hearing this at least by Wednesday, so hopefully you had a good Mother's Day.
Yeah. Happy Mother's Day.
So anyways, back to special interests.
Yes. Special interests. Kind of the breakdown of what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about what special interests are, how they might differ from like a neurotypical hobby or just a standard what you know as a hobby, and why they're important to autistic individuals and their communities. So that's kind of what we're going to touch on today. A little bit lighter of a topic, but still important.
Should I go over the definition, if you will, what a special interest is?
Sure. Let's switch things up a little bit.
Intense special interests are one of the hallmarks of autism. When pathologized as restricted, fixated, and abnormal in intensity and focus, they become diagnostic criteria and indicators of mental disorder, according to the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostics and Statistics Manual, or the DSM-5. You'll hear people talk about that. When it's pathologized, it always sounds like a disorder.
Yeah.
It's definitely not. When viewed as strengths and opportunities, special interests become pathways to helping adults with autism experience happiness and well-being, live, find meaning and purpose, and build relationships and communities. Worthy goals for neurodivergent and neurotypical people alike.
Yep. So, some of the examples of neurodivergent special interests would be knowledge, like a thorough knowledge of specific subjects, like not just being interested in geology, but knowing specific rocks and ages and like knowing really, really in depth. Could be math or science, the universe, space, knowing different galaxies and stars and, things like that. How those things work, math, like I've met some autistic people who constantly compute numbers in their brain. I work with a guy who says that he's constantly calculating the trajectory of his car and how far it is from the car in front of him to see if he has room to get over. Like that's just how his brain works, which is very interesting.
Is he aware that he's neurodivergent?
He is.
Okay.
Yes, he's diagnosed autistic. So other special interests would be like trains. And we're not talking just, trains are cool, or I had a toy train when I was a kid. We're talking like knows the schedules of the rails and the types of trains and where they run and what they carry, history of trains, collecting them, things like that. Usually it's a more like in-depth, something that people think is cool. It's just like way more in-depth. It's on a different level. Animals. So we watch Love on the Spectrum, and when I think of animals, I think of Abby and what's her boyfriend's name? David. Abby and David, because they like the safari animals, the lions, the lioness. Anyways, but they know about these animals, so that can be a special interest as well. Collector's items, dolls, coins, stuffed animals, Legos. We've known autistic people that collect Legos, and we're talking like build entire cities out of Legos. So That's a big one, I think. Careers, different types of careers. And if you can find a special interest that's a career and make a life out of it, kind of like you did, it tends to add to the happiness and fulfillment of your life and the success in that career because it's something you're interested in anyway, so you don't feel like you're working. So yeah, the list can go on. They can even be something that an autistic person knows everything about but has never participated in or or they're like afraid to try it. One of the examples I read about when I was looking into this was roller coasters. Some people know like the statistics on roller coasters and where the best roller coasters are and highest and fastest and all that, but they would never ride them. They're too scared to ride them. So I thought that was interesting.
You know, it's funny. You mentioned that. You know, I really love roller coasters, but I didn't used to always love roller coasters. And the first like serious roller coaster that had inversions that I rode was at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia. And before we went on that trip, this was when the internet was still really new. And my dad took me up to his work to look on the internet and look up stuff about the park. And I downloaded like the fact sheet about every roller coaster there.
Oh, that's funny.
And yeah, I remember this one was called Drakenfire, I think it was.
I think I remember you talking about it.
And it had like 7 inversions. And I was like, man, my friends are probably going to make me ride this. And they did. And I was like, yeah. But anyways, yeah. Speaking about collecting things too, like sometimes it might be something that you wouldn't think most, people would collect. I don't remember if it was the UK version or the Australian version or whatever one it was, but one of the Love on the Spectrums, one of the girls collected business cards, and she had just a huge book of, she just had a huge book of business cards, which was interesting.
Yeah.
So, like we said, this isn't the same thing as a hobby. Like, a lot of people have hobbies. Neurotypicals have hobbies, like sewing, or some collect like stamps and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Social events, going to parties, traveling, or sports. Like those aren't necessarily the same thing as a special interest. Those could be special interests too, though.
Yeah.
For sure.
Usually they're things that people do to keep them interested. It's like a break from what they normally do in the everyday grind, and that's how they get their fulfillment. And in the autistic world or in the neurodivergent world, it's you almost need to make that your life.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a little bit of a difference there, but usually neurotypical people don't know. I say usually because sometimes they do, but they don't know their hobbies inside and out as well as a neurodivergent person would know their special interests.
Well, and you might feel like you do, but there's like there's a depth to special interests sometimes that goes a little deeper. And sometimes like I really like trains. I like riding on trains. I want to eventually be able to build a model railroad set again, because I was working on one, and then when we moved, we had to pretty much take that apart. But I couldn't tell you like all the different types of locomotives and stuff like that necessarily.
Yeah, and I thought about that as I was looking at this subject too, and trains is an interesting one for me because I genuinely think if we had the money and the time for it, you would have an entire level of our house set up as a train village.
Oh, absolutely.
You would know a lot more about it. You would have it would be completely infiltrated. But the part of you that's like loyal to your family and cares about taking care of your family knows that that's just not a logistical possibility right now. So I think that it's a special interest in that it could totally consume your entire life. You're that interested in it, but life, the needs and requirements of your family just don't allow it right now. So I think that's.
Well, it's funny, kind of on the same topic. When we lived in Ohio and learned that there's actually a Holloway, Ohio, named after distant ancestors of mine. I started learning everything about this little village in Ohio and learned that it was once a hub for the B&O Railroad.
Yeah.
And had a massive switch yard. It was where coal trains went through and everything. And so I learned a lot about that, and actually somewhere I downloaded a diagram of their whole switch yard.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I wanted to do.
And you ended up going there with some of the kids.
Yep.
I wasn't able to be there. It was one of the trips that you made back to Ohio after we moved, right?
Yeah, I think so. It took, well, I don't remember for sure, but yeah.
Well, I wasn't
the
ever
girls
able
out
to be
there.
there for whatever reason. And I remember you telling me about that trip. You were so excited about it, and it was
And
fun
it's
for you
just
to
a
share it with
tiny
some of the
little
kids.
village now. There's really not anything there now,
Yeah.
but there's a whole bunch of stuff that says Holloway on it.
Yep.
So, yeah. So one thing that we've definitely noticed about me is special interests can kind of change and evolve over time.
Yep.
Especially when you're talking about people with ADHD, which we think I'm kind of ADHD, which is a little mixture of both. You can have cases where you have a special interest where you're oh, that's really cool. I want to, do that. And then it doesn't take long for you to go, yeah, next.
Yeah.
But then there's also the special interests that just don't go away, like firefighting and aviation for me and, stuff like that. So.
Yep. Some of the benefits, the roles that the special interests play in the autism, there's benefits like focus. It provides comfort to the autistic person. It gives them a way to express themselves, like self-expression and social connection. It gives them a way to converse with people and talk, something to talk to people about without feeling awkward. It eliminates that small talk.
Yeah.
And it kind of replaces it with something that a neurotypical person might see as small talk because they're not as in-depth in the subject. But the neurodivergent person, that's a very important topic to them. So they're not engaged in small talk anymore. It's now something that they're interested in. So it gives them that connection in a different way. One of the other things that it affects is the neurodiversity perspective. It helps in our world. We can value these differences and strengths. So we can take somebody that is interested in, say, math or something, and, really let them run with that and find a way that in our community that benefits everybody. And they feel like they're a productive member of this group or the society or whatever the case may be. But they can use their special interest because of their in-depth knowledge and their basically knowing everything about it to benefit. That's why we have specialties in everything. And
yeah, I was thinking about that. It's there's so much that, we need experts in. And when you really think about it, that's a good way to leverage special interests of neurodivergent people by letting them, actually be able to showcase their special interests and their knowledge and everything. And
it provides a value of self-worth and helps with self-esteem and stuff like that too, to know, okay, this is something that I know and I specialize in, and it's helping other people. So there's an element of that too, which I think is great.
Yep, for sure. I think that finding a way to leverage that might be a good way to help the unemployment rate amongst autistics, for sure.
Yeah.
If there's a way to actually leverage that. I mean,
I think part of that is what we talked about last week, the acceptance in the community of you hear about families that expect their kids to grow up and be doctors. And I was watching a show on Netflix not too long ago, and this person was a neuroscientist and their passion was baking, and their family was so disappointed, and they were trying to like convince their family that they could make a life out of this. Well, like the social aspect of that is like accept people for who they are
Yeah.
and let them run with it, and don't put the pressure on them to do something that they aren't interested in. Let focus that energy on something they are interested in, and then they can contribute that much more on that subject.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Well, and it goes into like, in my past, trying to do what other people expected me to do, trying to,
figuring out a career path.
figuring out a career path. Exactly. Like when I tried majoring in finance and marketing or hotel and restaurant management, like it wasn't working.
Yeah.
I wasn't interested in it, so I couldn't engage. And it just like, that's kind of how
It's like it
how
just
the brain
doesn't
works.
stick.
Yeah. If you're not interested in it at all, you won't even be able to engage in it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean it has to be a special interest necessarily, but it's a really important part, because that's just part of our brain wiring. If we're not interested, it's just going to go right
Well, and
through.
I think that's a kind of a human thing, but it's like a human thing on steroids for autistic people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Some of the challenges with special interests is they can become intense and interfere with daily life. It's like we talked about it's the definition. It becomes like an obsession, almost like a clinical thing, and lead to misunderstandings. So
It can definitely be like a very distracting thing. And as I was reading up on some stuff for this episode too, especially when you're talking about ADHD people, they can be so, there's that focus on it, but it becomes, that's the only thing you're focused on, and you don't remember to do other things.
yeah.
Like our son, like one of his special interests for sure is video games. And if he's allowed to just sit and play video games, he'll completely lose track of time. He's so
Nothing
focused
else
on it.
exists.
And
it's not his fault. It's just the way
no,
he's
it's
wired.
not, and we have to remember to just, hey, you need to get this stuff done too.
Yeah.
Or sometimes we need to just be like, all right, no more video games until you get this done.
Time to shut off.
Because if you do that, now getting it done is part of him getting back to a special interest. And
Right.
Then
Yeah. Everything gets done really fast when you turn off the video games. So yeah, it's definitely, but they can on some level interfere with daily life, and you have to find ways around that, or find ways to battle that, combat that, whatever.
Balance it.
Balance. Yeah. Balance is a better word.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can lead to misunderstandings. I know it's caused frustration with us and our son before, but the more we try to understand it, it's like, okay, this is just the way he's wired. It's not, it's not like an addiction. It's not like him trying to defy us or ignore everything else. It's like nothing else exists when he's doing that.
Because when you remind him again and you say, okay, you need to go do this, like he gets it done.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just not even, it's
not
kind of
even
like,
on his radar.
It doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
It's like, It's
Yeah.
like, when he's focused on his video games, nothing else exists.
Yeah. And our older kids are probably like, why couldn't they have understood that when I was his age?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing that sucks about being parents, is you don't figure it out until it's too late.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I think I've got this down on our last child.
Go figure. It's just the way it works. So personal stories and experiences, I wanted to like go into like asking some questions about your special interests, since that's what we're the experts on, is our life experience.
Right.
What are some of your special interests currently?
Well, I mean, like we've talked about, aviation for sure is one of my special interests. And besides just working in aviation, there's a place you can go at the DFW airport called Founders Plaza, where you can do plane spotting. It's like a little overlook area of the airport, and you can watch airplanes take off and land. And
Set up specifically for that, and it views the runways perfectly. And little secret, I know that I can always get a date out of him if I say, let's go do a Founders date. It's called Founders Plaza. People can like look it up and go there. It's a very public area. But if I say to Keith, let's do a founder's date, I know I'm always going to get a date. And we'll usually go like get drinks and maybe like a slice of pizza or a sandwich or something, and then go over and sit and watch
Just sit
planes
and
land
watch and talk.
and talk. And
Yep.
yeah, it's been like a, but yeah, if you,
I really like it because it's funny. If it's really busy there, it almost makes it better, which seems counterintuitive because I don't usually like busy areas with a lot of people. But it's kind of like that parallel play thing that goes into it. Like there's a bunch of people there and they're all enjoying the same thing. And what I like the most about it is it's such a diverse group of people.
yeah.
So like, really young kids loving it, older people loving it. There's people that are out there and they're obviously also very interested in photography. So they're taking pictures. There's people from all different backgrounds,
Cultures,
ethnicities, cultures. Yeah, it's cool because
everybody likes
so
planes.
yeah. There's just so
Like,
many
yeah.
different kind of people that love being out there and watching planes, and especially when there's like people will watch the schedules and
Yep.
and like one of the big things that's popular is British Airways used to fly an Airbus A380 in there. It's the largest passenger
Until like a month
airplane.
ago.
Yeah.
So it's been,
And so like if we weren't paying attention to when one was coming in and we were sitting there and suddenly we realized a whole bunch of people are showing up,
Thinking
we're
it's
like, oh,
full.
the A380 must
Yep.
be getting close. And
yeah.
then we'll, check on the little app that we have. And yep, sure enough, it's getting ready to come in. And yeah, it's kind of its own fun little community.
Yeah. And we've always liked kids. It's so fun to watch little kids
Oh yeah.
being over the planes. So like it's just part of watching people, but little kids specifically, I get a kick out of the little kids, but you just,
Yeah.
people in general doing
And
the same thing you enjoy doing.
Plane spotting is like, it's not even just that, but like, there's a guy that will do live plane spotting YouTube shows from there called Runway DFW. There's one that I'll watch sometimes from LAX called Airline Videos Live. Like people will get on there, and in the chat rooms we'll be chatting with each other, and there'll be people from all over the world,
Yeah.
watching and stuff. It's
Always amazing to me when I see the comments. I'm like, oh, wow.
it's
People are
definitely kind of a fun thing. And again, it's like it's a way to socialize with other people who share that same special interest, and it's not small talk anymore.
Right. Right.
It's interesting for sure.
Yeah.
What are some of my other special interests right now?
Honestly, currently, I would say that this podcast is one of your special interests. You've taken like a really big interest into like the autistic community and educating and helping other people navigate it because it was such a challenge. I would say,
Yeah,
honestly, that
For sure.
this is a special interest. It's definitely on your mind. The editing, the making sure that things get out on time, like that's definitely something that you're very interested in right now.
I don't know if it's a special interest or if it just helps with my special interest, but whenever there's anything that's kind of other people might think tedious or what's another word for like really meticulous, like a meticulous kind of thing,
Yeah.
I kind of enjoy that.
Yeah.
So like the editing, it can be kind of a pain because it takes up time, but if I have the time, it's not a problem.
Yeah, like there's
that.
frustrations along the way, but the end product is satisfying enough to you that it's like,
Yep.
I did that. Yeah.
Exactly. For sure.
And you've always been that way, even like with editing music and stuff. You kind of have always enjoyed.
Well, and I still have the channel. I have a plane spotting channel, and I used to go to Founders, and I would just record. I wouldn't do live, but I would record airplanes taking off and landing, and then edit them into a video
Yeah.
and post it. And yeah, the editing is always kind of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Books, I think, is another special interest of mine.
Yeah, I would
I
agree
like
with
to
that.
read, but I also like to collect books. So it's
Yeah.
like just because I'm buying a book doesn't mean I'm ever going to be able to get around to reading it. Because as most like book people will tell you, your to be read stack is always growing
Yeah.
faster than your reading
Yeah.
catch up to
I
sometimes.
think in the future, when we own a house, it will include a train room and a lot more bookshelves. Moving those things is a challenge, so we haven't made a huge collection out of them, but I can definitely see that.
Yeah, for sure.
And as far as books go, it ranges from like picture books of space stuff to Harry Potter to John Grisham to nonfiction, like anything and everything. Neil deGrasse Tyson, you have a lot of his books. Just like you are one of the very few people, and I know there's a lot out there, but I just don't encounter them in my life very much. In my life that I've met that reads nonfiction for pleasure, like you just pick up a nonfiction book to learn something about, and it's fun for me to watch. I'm not really a reader, like I can't sit and I've had times in the past that I've read, but I don't enjoy it as much. And you love books, so
I like, especially when it comes to nonfiction books, either like science related books or like history. And I would say that those might also kind of be my special interest. One historical special interest, Abraham Lincoln.
oh yeah,
Like I am fascinated by his life. Anything that I can find that I can read about him and learn more about
yeah.
him.
At one point, you wanted to read more about each of the presidents, and then it kind of evolved back into. I mean, it usually settles back on Abraham Lincoln. That's what you're most interested in.
Yeah, and I still would like to do that, but it's funny. Like one year, I was like, I'm going to read. How many books was it? Like 30 something books, and I read 39 books in the year.
The challenge was 3 a month.
Yeah, 3 a month.
Yeah.
And I read 39 that year, and then it's like, it all depends on what else is going on. That year, I mostly read at work. But yeah, I've kind of slowed down, but I still like, I almost always take a fiction book and a nonfiction book with me to work.
Yeah, because you don't know what you're going to be in the mood for.
Yep. And sometimes I'll read from both of them.
Yeah.
Right now, I have The Martian, which is the book the movie is based on. And it's funny because yesterday one of my coworkers was like, I thought you already read that book. And I was like, no, I haven't. And I said, it's funny because I was looking at books on Amazon and I saw that book and I was like, how have I not read this one yet? So,
Yeah.
and then the other one that I have is a book about, was it FDR and who was the British guy that was during World War II?
I don't know. I can't keep track.
Anyways, my brain is not wanting to come up with it, but I can see him. Churchill, I think it was.
Okay.
Just a book about their relationship and stuff. So, I think I'd read a book about them previously. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's just kind of interesting stuff. If it's a book about like some kind of lesser known historical event that's still significant,
Yeah.
I'll read about that.
Well,
too.
and I think part of that is your love for history. Like you love history, and anytime the kids have ever needed help with history class or homework,
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
like you're like, this is right up my alley. I love this. So, and you remember facts and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's definitely makes sense. I mean, Abraham Lincoln's a favorite one, but
yep.
history in general, I would say. So how do you feel like your special interests have shaped your identity, like who you are today?
Well, I think like my biggest special interests are what have shaped like the careers that I've had, and not just the careers that I've had, but how successful I've been able to be in them. And yeah, you may think running into burning buildings for $11.50 an hour isn't super successful, but I spent 17 years in emergency services. I have a lot of stories that I could tell that I think make it feel pretty successful.
Right. They kind of give you that personal fulfillment. That's the aspect of it that's kind of builds your confidence and your self-esteem, is like, okay, I did that. And even in your situation, this case specifically, while making sacrifices in my life to survive on a low wage or in a stressful situation, I made that work and still was able to give back. And it's that much more satisfying. So I
Yeah.
think that I agree.
Yeah. But yeah, understanding even early on that if it wasn't something I was interested in, I couldn't engage, probably definitely helped. And maybe some people saw that as selfish at first early on, but it certainly wasn't a selfish thing. It was, I need to understand my brain, and my brain will only engage if I'm interested
This
in it.
is what I have to do to survive.
Yeah.
It wasn't about
It
people
wasn't about a
pleasing or-
lack of ambition. It wasn't about not wanting to sacrifice for my family, because I've done a lot of that.
Yeah.
It was just about understanding that if I want to do anything to take care of my family, I've
Yeah.
got to be interested in it.
Well, and I think the route to get to where you are now in aviation kind of is a testament of that. It speaks to it because you started out on the ramp, and that job itself was hard on you, and you did not. I mean, like, you enjoyed the people you worked with, and what kept you in that is because you got to work with planes. Like, you were interested in the planes that you got to work on, and you thought that part of it was cool. So it kept you going to the hard physical job that
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't have done if it wasn't around planes.
I got to not just work with planes, but climb into them. Climb into the part of planes that most people don't get to go into,
Yeah.
which was, I always thought was cool too. But
Yeah.
yeah, like the job itself was really physically taxing, and it really tore up my body. Whatever firefighting didn't destroy, working the ramp pretty much finished that off.
Yeah.
Like my knees, my back. But yeah, it was like walking
had
out
to-
onto the ramp where all the airplanes were. It was just
Like,
fun.
it was like picking up trash in a playground. Like, you were in an element that you absolutely, and that's a horrible way of saying it. So I don't like that. But it's like doing a job that you really don't like, a dirty job in a place that you love and around things that you love. So it kind of changes the element of, okay, I'm. It's not even that I don't like what I'm doing, because it's part of what I love. So, what about? Do you think that any of your?
Sorry.
It's okay. I didn't know if you needed to get that out before
No,
I started with my question.
No, go ahead.
How have your special interests, if they have, affected relationships in your life?
Well, like I said, I've kind of touched on it. Sometimes I forget where I've talked about something here or writing stuff down. But I think we've kind of talked about how, like, in my first marriage, like, that was when I first started being, first started working as a volunteer firefighter, as a 911 dispatcher, and realizing this is what I wanted to do. Like, I was like, this is what I want my life to be, being a firefighter. And that was just not what she envisioned.
Yeah. Like, it
For
was
her
more
life.
of like the traditional life expectation of you graduate from high school, you go to college, you work a career either at a desk or, like in a big company. Like, it just was like kind of the standard, not unrealistic expectations of
Yeah.
a life and building a life together, but it just didn't fit. Yeah.
Yeah. And it, like I said, I was, there was saying I didn't have ambition. There was, basically, it was just a difference of expectations. But I think we were both still really young and
I was gonna
immature.
say,
And
maturity plays a lot into that too.
Yeah. So that we weren't able to understand that that's mostly what it was.
Yeah.
We were just different people that had different expectations. And she's a nurse practitioner now, very successful.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of,
Done a great job with your with our daughter,
Right.
your daughter.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's like, we just weren't at the same place when we tried to be at the same place in life. It just
Right.
didn't work out that way. So,
Yep. So, like, yeah, when I decided for sure I wanted to be a firefighter, that didn't help things there for sure.
yeah.
I think like positive ways, kind of like you talked about, like plane spotting. It gives us something to actually go and enjoy together. Just working in aviation in general, like now you're working in aviation, and now it's something that we can both talk about, and you
Yeah.
actually understand what I'm talking about now.
Sometimes more than I used to.
I was talking about that last night with one of my coworkers who actually asked how you were doing at your job, and I said, it's funny because before you got into working in aviation and learning about what we do, you used to say that when I would talk about it, it would just go. And I was like, well, it turns out some of it stuck. Because once you started working in it, then like you really were like, oh wait, I remember this stuff. In fact, I was telling them how, we want to be able to tell people, oh well, she may have only just started in aviation, but she's been married to me, and I've got 8 years as an aircraft dispatcher.
Yeah.
So that should qualify for like 4 years experience for you or something,
Yeah.
with as much as I talk about it and everything.
Well, and I think it's funny. I was thinking about this when we were talking about Founders Plaza. It's like watching planes come in and our little Founders dates that we go on. We'll sit and play a game of, okay, tell me what this plane is coming in. And without looking at the app to identify the plane, I have to like be able to identify it. And I've gotten better at that over time. So it's, like the specific planes, not just flying and things, but yeah.
It's funny because like when I was thinking about this episode and I was thinking about some of my special interests, I'm like, some of my special interests I don't feel like I have as in-depth a knowledge about as other people do their special interests, like trains again,
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to like aviation and airplanes, I'm like, I can look up at an airplane that's pretty high up and be like, oh, that's an A350 1000.
Sometimes the sound.
Yeah.
Because we live under the flight path. So we'll be outside going to the car or something. And sometimes the sound of it, you'll be like, oh, and I'm like.
Well, there's one that even we call it the Chewy.
Yeah.
The Airbus A220. That's engines make a sound that sounds like Chewie from Star Wars when they're spooling up. So, and usually when they're coming into land, they'll like throttle idle and then spool up and stuff, and we can hear it.
Chewy happens to be my boyfriend, so that one was a special interest for me.
Right. Yep, Chewy's her boyfriend. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's funny. Any ways that it's affected your relationships with the kids?
Yeah, I mean it has given me something to talk about, like science topics. I share that with our youngest, so he and I can sit there and talk about science. And
you both understand it on a level that I don't even begin to comprehend.
Yeah, like sometimes I'll have like, I think about science and I think about like, oh, I wonder if anyone thought of this, and it's probably something that people have already thought of. But it'll be like a mind blow thought that comes to me, and I'm like, whoa. And so I'll like share it with him, or if I'm reading like a book specifically about science, like I've read Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time and stuff like that. Like any like really cool thing, I'll be like, hey, you got to check out this thing that I read. Yeah. Even like years ago when we lived in Ohio, I remember like sometimes I'd come home from work, and like when we had all the kids there, and even like the one girl that lived in our neighborhood that would just come walking into our house whenever and called us mom and dad.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we'd sit around and start talking about history or start talking about science, and I would just talk to all the kids, and they seem to listen and be interested sometimes.
I think sometimes it's like they roll their eyes like, oh, here goes dad again. Like we've heard this before. But I also think it kind of was special in a way that it gave them an insight to who you were. Yeah. I think as they grow and mature, they'll appreciate that more.
I hope so.
Yeah, I definitely think so. All right. So do you have any tips for others on managing special interests?
When I learn how to manage mine, I'll let you know. No, no, I think like I said, if you can find a way to do something, like if you want to have a job that you feel fulfilled in, and that you feel you can be successful in, and that you feel is sufficient to take care of your needs, definitely trying to find a way to incorporate a special interest into it is definitely key.
Yeah.
And I mean, that wasn't even like the plan when I went into aviation after having to change careers from being in firefighting. Like, I just got a job to get a job. It was like, I need to get a job to do something until I figure out what I'm doing with my life.
Yeah.
And I saw a job opening working at the airport, and I didn't even know for sure what I would be doing.
Yeah. And
But it was working at the airport, and it sounded cool.
Right. And when you came home from orientation and you're like, I get flight benefits with this job. We were like,
Well, that was the
oh, that's
interview.
cool.
I came home from
Oh,
the
yeah, it was
interview,
the interview.
and I was
You're right.
like, we'll get to fly for free. And that became a special
That was a big deal because we lived
Yeah.
across the country from a lot of our families. So.
And had 7 kids.
Right.
So,
Yep. All right. So,
speaking of special interests,
right. We were talking about tips on managing special interests. You said the career,
Yeah.
finding a career. That anything else?
I mean, just I would say lean into it. Let yourself enjoy it. For any family members, loved ones, caregivers for people who are neurodivergent, like, let them, don't discourage it. Let them enjoy it, because
I think,
like you said, it's a comfort. It can be kind of a way of stimming, a way of self-soothing.
yeah, I think as a caregiver or a support person or a family member or whatever the case may be, one of the things that you can do is help the autistic person balance or find ways to get access to their special interests that are within reason for their life. So like for us, your interest in aviation didn't involve buying plane tickets and flying all over the world. Right. It looks a little different because financially that's where we're at. So you can find ways for an autistic person to participate in their special interests and support them by doing that aren't, spending a whole bunch of money on Lego sets or plane tickets or, whatever the special interest may be. So I think that's a good way to support.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Which kind of segues nicely into our next section, which is supporting and encouraging special interests. So parents, educators, caregivers, they can be a big part of nurturing those special interests. So listening to what your autistic loved one has to say about their special interests, like they don't expect you to understand it on the level they do. They just want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's something I've had to learn is like,
yeah, because
I can pick out pieces and understand pieces, but sometimes I'm just like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, and like we're down to, us and our youngest, and he's also neurodivergent. So it's you and 2 neurodivergent people who
I get info dumped on
sometimes just want to info dump. Yep. I guess we haven't even talked about that, but that's very much related.
Yeah.
Info dumping is like when you learn something more about your special interest or like whatever. Yeah. Neurodivergence.
Tell somebody about it and you go into way more detail than they probably wanted to
talking about the detail and longer.
You have no idea.
And you don't pick up on the social cues of,
I'm done listening to this, or I didn't really have an interest in this in the first place. People are usually kind about it and will let you finish, but they were done with it 20 minutes ago.
But yeah, as a parent or a caregiver or a loved one, just understanding that if they're info dumping on you, that's like a love language.
Yeah. Definitely. And you almost have to let it run its course because it's just building up inside if they don't get it out. So, yeah.
I know there have been times when I'll talk to you about some stuff that I've read in books, and you're like, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about, but
But I know you need
You
to
just
talk
let me
about this
talk
right
about
now,
it.
so yeah, for sure. So special interests can be incorporated into learning and social settings. So, like parts of the community, group activities, things like that.
Mhm.
School, like learning, like if you're teachers and you have neurodivergent students, finding a way to incorporate their special interests into something so that they're more interested in learning it.
Well, and it can also, like, we're pretty well known for being awkward in social settings and stuff like that. So getting involved in a special interest that has like a community of other people who are interested in that can help with that setting too. Now, you may be just learning to socialize with other neurodivergents, which isn't as difficult for us.
Yeah,
But still, it kind of gives you, an arena to learn
yeah,
socialization skills and stuff in.
definitely. But this is one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking about managing special interests is balancing the passion or the special interests with other life skills and responsibilities. So like what I was, saying as far as financially what you can afford, and finding that balance, because there's definitely things that you've sacrificed that you would love to do but haven't done because
hmm
we have a family and we're being financially responsible for them at this point.
Yeah, and
So,
the balance is important both ways, though, because I know there were times in my life where I completely sacrificed any
right.
special interests, and that's not good for your mental health
No.
either.
No.
So learning to find just the right balance there.
Yeah. Finding ways to participate in that.
hmm
And if, your responsibilities require it to not be financially, you can find like trying
Yeah.
to find other ways to still be engaged.
Well, and leveraging your special interests to help you get stuff done too. Again, like my special interest helps me actually be able to do my job. I'm
Yeah.
interested in it. Like I enjoy it. And so, it helps me have a job that gets us some nice benefits,
Yep.
still fly for free. The pay is really nice. But even with other little things like the sacrifices and the hard work that it took to get to where we are today, there's no way I would have even been able to do that if I wasn't working towards something that I was really, really interested in anyways.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes you have to leverage your special interest to make your brain engage. Sometimes you can, if you can make something connected to your special interest
Yeah.
in your brain, then you can get your brain to engage and go, okay, I need to get this done because it's connected one way or another.
Yeah.
Like all the classes that I had to take and all the extra sacrifices that I had to make, I knew I was doing that to get to where I am now. And so it became part of my special interest.
Yeah. Or like giving yourself rewards with your special interests. Like
hmm
in our son's case, it's like, okay, you've got to get these things done that you don't enjoy. And in the end, you'll get to do your special interests.
hmm
And sometimes you can't make dishes and laundry
Right.
connect to video games, but you can be like, okay, I got to get these life responsibility things done, and then I can do what I
hmm
enjoy. So that's also some of the misconceptions about special interests,
hmm
like mis
Like,
stereotype.
yeah, the myths and the stereotypes about it.
Yeah. So like obsessions, fixations, or disorders, like we talked about that when we talked about the actual definition from the DSM. Like it's not a disorder. It's just something that your brain's wired differently to enjoy. So we just have to figure out how it fits in our life.
Right.
The language we use about special interests can impact perspective and understanding among other people. One of the things that I read about when I was doing research,
It was like Devon Price's book again, which we talked about
yeah,
last episode too.
the Unmasking Autism, yeah. He's in that book, I'm going to just read the quote directly or else I'll mess it up. But he says, having the freedom to develop and express special interests is linked to improved social, emotional, and fine motor development. And in studies that examine the lives of autistic adults, engaging with special interests is positively associated with subjective well-being. He goes on to say masking or hiding important parts of oneself is distracting and exhausting. We talked about that last week. Thinking of oneself as too different or weird is depressing. So it can affect your mental health too. A life avoiding what gives one joy or pleasure can be empty. And we have to remember that. Like we're the same way. We just
Don't get so busy
yeah.
making a living or earning a living that you forget to live.
Yeah.
And really living is doing the things that you enjoy and that you love and that brings you happiness. Yeah.
This is a continuation of the quote. Hiding our talents limits opportunities to do good for others. Hiding who we are makes it harder to connect with others, including finding and connecting with others like us. So, I think that's all.
Yeah.
It just kind of speaks for itself.
Kind of like what we talked about. It gives you a community that you feel you belong to. It gives you opportunities to socialize that don't feel as awkward to you. Yeah. Like I said, some of the times in my life where I just completely sacrificed any special interest of mine because I thought that was what I needed to do, I was probably doing a disservice to my family more than anything. Because if you're not able to engage in those things that bring you happiness and joy, then you're not going to be your best self for everybody else either.
Right.
So it's important for sure.
It's just like you do as a parent or as a caregiver, you start to make those sacrifices, and sometimes it's easy to forget. But even as a neurotypical person, I remember one day it was like this weird thing, and I almost remember it as clear as can be, like driving to work and being at a specific stoplight and saying to myself, it's okay to put yourself on the priority list. Like just giving yourself permission to do that. It's okay to put yourself on your priority list. You don't have to be at the bottom all the time.
Yeah.
And finding that and, satisfying those needs make you better for other people.
Especially like, growing up like I did, undiagnosed, living, 43 years not diagnosed, thinking that I always had to like mask a lot of who I was and, kind of tamp down my personality and my likes and my interests. Like that did not help my mental health at all. And so like learning, like you said, to make yourself a priority.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you don't care about the others in your life. Because if you make yourself a priority and you take care of yourself in those ways, you're a better version of yourself for everybody else too.
Yeah. And I would go one step further in this forum that we're sitting in. That was the mental space I was in at the time. It's okay to put yourself on the priority list. It's important to put yourself on the priority list. It's like a huge key element in our lives. You have to put yourself on the priority list.
Yeah.
You're part of that.
If all you're doing is sacrificing for everybody and just burning yourself out and everything, you're gonna, sometimes you might even be, it might be sabotaging the very thing that you think you're sacrificing for.
Yeah. Definitely.
Like this one.
That's right.
Well,
I don't think she feels good.
no. Somebody got into a Chipotle wrapper. Huh.
It's not her fault. She's just a normal, curious doggy. So closing remarks. We want to encourage everyone to embrace and celebrate special interests to help make room for them in our autistic friends and family members' lives, whatever levels possible. We've talked about this several ways.
Sharing in like the hobby or the special interest with them when you can.
Yeah.
Again, even if it's just listening, and it might be listening to something that you can't even wrap your brain around, or you're not that interested in, just letting them info dump.
Yeah. Give them the time. One of the things that our youngest son's therapist thing. No, you know what? It was mine that encouraged me to do, and I need to get back to it because it was actually beneficial for both of us, was in the morning before he goes to school, like find 10, and that's where the way our schedules worked at the time. I'd have to find a different time of day to do it now, but just sit with him for 10 minutes and listen. Don't try to correct, don't try to parent, don't try to guide, just listen. Listen to what he has to say. And it was kind of crazy because a lot of it was info dumping. It was like, this is what I have going on in my life, and I want to tell you all about it now. And he knew that he had that full 10 minutes of my undivided attention. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have, like anything. I just listened for, 10 minutes. And it makes a difference. So we need to make that time. 10 minutes is not that much out of our day, and we waste so much time doing other things. So, but whatever level is possible, make it work in your life. It just make a small change to try to help facilitate those things.
It'll help your relationship with them. It'll help their mental health. Just overall, like I don't see a downside to that.
Yeah.
And you may even, start to remember things that you didn't think you were remembering, right, honey?
Maybe. So next week we're going to be talking about autism and mental health. So that's going to be our topic for episode 6.
Pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Haven't even started on it yet, but yeah, probably. If not, oh well.
It's an important topic, or if we talk about something else, it'll be important, and we'll talk about mental health later. But we'll find a time to talk about that. So if you could leave us some feedback, your thoughts in the comments, tell us what some of your special interests are. We're here for it. So
special interest, feel free to drop some info that you know about your special interest, or maybe like I talked about the Runway DFW channel on YouTube. If there's like a website or something that people could go to learn more about your special interest, or like they may share your special interest, but they don't know about this one website or something, leave those in the comments.
Yeah, for sure.
Let us know about those things.
Let's do that community thing where we share things and make all of us better.
And speaking of sharing, if this resonates with you, or someone who you think this would resonate with, definitely share this podcast with others.
Yep.
Like and subscribe it too, because that helps us get recommended to more people, and it helps the community grow that way too. And that's really what we're doing this for. We're not in this to make money in a podcast.
No.
We're doing this because we just want to provide another actually autistic voice, and another loved one of an autistic, just provide those voices for people who are newly diagnosed, or just are looking for more voices out there.
Just processing everything in kind of how we process.
So liking and subscribing, they're free, and they're the best way you can help us grow this community.
Yep. Great. Well, we will be back next week, and we will see you then.
Yep.
Have a great week.
See you. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Please consult a qualified healthcare provider for diagnosis or treatment of autism or related condition.